those of you that are watching this video, it might seem a little bit familiar just because I did a roughly identical video probably a couple of months ago that was really popular, and I got some really great comments and feedback as to how rarely I screwed up the audio when it came to that video. Now, granted, I like to experiment, and that was the first time I started messing with audio levels and settings when it comes to the video editor I'm currently using. Between then and now, I have a much better microphone, have an audio mixer that I'm currently using, so I think I can do a better job when it comes to retelling that story. And not only that, I found a slightly different rendition online that I'm going to be using as well. So with that said, for those of you that are watching this type of video for the first time, Hermes Trismegistus was a Egyptian king, priest, and even scholar when it comes to almost being like an ascended master. He most certainly wasn't a god, even though he's known by his god title in many other religions, such as the Greek god Hermes or the Roman god Mercury. And of course, when it comes to Egypt, right, same person, Thoth, right, the creature with the long beak. So with that said, we owe Hermes Trismegistus a lot when it comes to modern medicine. The hermeneutical seal, the staff, the medical staff that you see all the time. Also when it comes to the hermeneutical method of qualitative research, believe it or not. And the list goes on and on. So whether or not he was a real figure is, in my opinion, irrelevant. Just because I look at what the material is that's being presented, I could care less where it came from. And especially back then, it wasn't hard to change your identity, your last name, your whole persona, or having a second identity, much like today's movie stars that we have, right? You know, yes, when it comes to our popular movie stars or singers, they might be known as, one or two word names, but that usually isn't their real name. But again, when it comes to identifying them, much like most people identified Thoth through various other names, he was a real person. It was a real person that made up these words, even if they were a nobody, right? If this information resonates with you, then it's your own truth. And that's something I think we kind of lose sight of, especially as we go further back in millenniums, right? What's fact, what's fiction, and everywhere in between, which is what most things are that old, tens of thousands of years, where things used to be an oral tradition. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I perfected a few things, right? And I will leave a little bit of commentary at the very end for you guys. All right, enjoy. Here is the Prophecy of Hermes, also known as the Lament of Thoth, right? Do you know, Asclepius, that Egypt is an image of the heavens? Or, to speak more exactly, in Egypt all the operations of the powers which rule and work in heaven have been transferred to the earth below? No, it should rather be said that the whole universe dwells in this our land as in the sanctuary. And yet, since it's fitting that all wise men should have knowledge of all events before they come to pass, you must not be left in ignorance of what I will now tell you. There will come a time when it will be in vain that Egyptians honored the deity with heartfelt piety and assured service, and all our holy worship will be found powerless and pointless. For the gods will return from earth from whence they came. Egypt will be forsaken, and the land which was once the home of religion will be left desolate, bereft of the presence of the deities. This land and region will be filled with foreigners. Not only will men neglect the service of the gods, but all will be forgotten. And Egypt will be occupied by the Scythians or Indians, or by some such race from the barbarian countries that will be filled with only funerals and corpses. To thee I foretell that which shall be, swollen with torrents of blood. Thou wilt rise to the level of thy banks, and thy sacred waves will be not only stained, but utterly fouled with gore. Do you weep for this, Asclepius? There is worse to come. Egypt herself will have yet more to suffer. She will fall into far more pious plight, and will be infected with yet more grievous plagues. And this land, which was once holy a land which loved the gods, and wherein alone and reward for her devotion, the gods designed to sojourn upon the earth. A land which was the teacher of mankind in holiness and piety. This land will go beyond all cruel deeds. The dead will far outnumber the living, and the survivors will be known for Egyptians by their tongue alone. But in their culture, they will seem to be men of another race. O Egypt, Egypt of thy religion, nothing will remain but an empty tale, one in which your own children in time will not come to even believe. Nothing will be left but words engraved on stone, and only the stones will tell of thy devoted piety. And in that day, men will be weary of life, and they will cease to think of the world or the universe as worthy of reverent wonder and worship. And so, religion, the greatest of blessings, for there is nothing, nor has been, nor ever shall be, that can be deemed a greater benefit, will be threatened with destruction. People will think of it as a burden, and they will even learn to scorn it. They will no longer love the world around them, this incomparable work of God, this glorious structure which He has built, this sum of good made up of things of so many diverse forms, this instrument whereby the will of God operates in that which He has made, ungrudgingly favoring man's welfare, this combination and accumulation of all the manifold things that call forth the veneration, praise, and love of the beholder. Darkness will be preferred to light, and death will be thought of as more profitable than life. No one, and I say no one, will raise their eyes to the heavens once more. Good spiritual people will be deemed insane, and the pious falsely wise. The madman will be thought a brave man, and the wicked will be praised as good. As for the soul, and the belief that thy soul is immortal by nature, or may hope to attain to immortality, as I have taught you, all of this they will mock at, and even persuade themselves that it is false. No word of reverence or piety, no utterance worthy of heaven and of the gods in heaven will be heard or believed. And so the gods will depart mankind. What a grievous thing! And only evil messengers will remain, who will mingle with men and drive the poor wretches by main force into all manner of reckless crime, into wars and robberies and frauds and all hostile things to the nature of the human soul. Then will the earth no longer stand unshaken, and the sea will bear no ships. Heaven will not support the stars in their orbits, nor will the stars pursue their own course constant in heaven. All the voices of the gods will of necessity be silenced and speechless. The fruits of the earth will rot, the soil will turn barren, and the very air will sicken in sullen stagnation. After this manner will old age come upon the world. Religion will be no more. All things will be disordered and awry. All good will disappear. But when all this has befallen Asclepius, then will the Master and Father God, the first before all, the maker of that God who first came into being, will look on that which has come to pass, and will stay the disorder by the counterworking of his will, which is all that is good. He will call back to the right path those that have gone astray. He will cleanse the world from evil, now washing it away with water floods, now burning it out with the fiercest fire, and again expelling it by war and pestilence. And thus he will bring back to this world to its former glory, so that the cosmos will once more be deemed worthy of worship and wondering reverence. And God, the maker and restorer of the mighty fabric, will be adored by men of that day, unceasingly hearing the hymns of praise and blessing. Such is the birth of the new cosmos. It is a making again of all things that are good, a holy and awe-striking restoration of all nature. And it is wrought in the process of time by the eternal will of God. For God's will has no beginning. It is ever the same, and as it now is, ever so it has ever been, without beginning. For it is very being of God, to purpose good. All right, so that lament, which again, it wasn't a lament, it had a kind of dreary forecast of at least the coming future, even though the end seems very pleasing and hopeful. This was a story between Hermes Trismegistus and his son Asclepius, right? So he's trying to pass knowledge onto his son to kind of warn him of things to come. But I think it's really funny when it comes to listening to the prophecy, how many times there's a reference to a singular creator God, right? A first source and center God. Yes, I would imagine that an entity that has always existed has divided itself a bunch of times. And if that's the case, of course it would be small g gods. But with that said, when it comes to what you're seeing in today's media, maybe when it comes to politics especially, maybe some things resonated with you, and I hope they did. And, a lot of this ancient knowledge presents itself in a series of cycles, right? That, keeps recurring over millennium for millennium. And so much like, what happened in Egypt that he forecasted, right? When it came to, the ethnocentric dominant culture taking over, that's what's being seen in the world today with various other regions in the world. All right, with that said, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you on the next one.